over the last couple of weeks. I've just been eating too much dessert, too much sugar. But that's just that's bottom line. That's all right.
I've not really changed that, but I'm playing paddle 90 minutes 4 times a week instead of doing proper exercise. We had this conversation last week, didn't we?
We
I said
didn't talk about.
It's better than chess, but it's not like proper fitness.
Yeah, so you're kidding yourself, aren't you? You're basically saying, "All right, I'm doing some exercise," but in fact, no.
I'm fully aware.
You've reduced the exercise you're doing, and you're just burning time rather than burning energy. That's
step count. No, I'm getting better at paddle, but my step count is down considerably, and so is my heart rate.
Yeah, I've got to do more. I've got to find an efficient way to do it. I think Bass does a very good job of walking whilst listening to podcasts. So maybe that's one thing I should try and do. Just do your 20,000 steps, however many you need, but do it in some sort of productivity fashion where you're learning something as you're going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do that as well. We got a dog. Get a dog. Seriously.
A dog, yeah, forces you to do it, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, I obviously haven't got the conditions to do that. But yeah, I think getting some sort of thing that will force you out of the house, very important. Anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live On Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It is episode 2. Actually, no, it's episode 326. 326. The numbering system has gone all over the place. I hope everyone's going to bear with us on that. But simply, we've done a ton of stuff midweek, live demos, founders focuses coming on, different specials coming all over the place. Everyone wants a piece of this conversation. So it's fantastic different companies are wanting to step up and sponsor and support these shows. So we're going to keep rolling forward. I think we're going to head for a record number of Brainfood Lives this year. Probably we're going to hit about 60 shows, which is more than once a week, which is amazing. Anyway, let's do some sound checks real quick. Just want to make sure everyone can hear and see me okay. I'm gone back to my old mic, so if it's quite important you actually can hear and see me. Let me know in the comments, folks, if the audio and visual is fine on your side. Chat on the Crowdcast there if you're watching it on there. We are broadcasting this live on a number of LinkedIns. There should be a bunch of us blasting this out, including myself. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, anywhere, let me know whether the audio and visual's fine. Drop me a note in the comments whether you can see myself and Adam Gordon on screen. Looks like everything's good. Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Amandeep. Bring you on the sec. All good. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Chloe. Everyone. Everyone can hear us okay. Fantastic stuff. Okay, let's get on with it. Before we sort of go ahead, we have to thank one of our sponsors. It is, of course, one of the leading ATSs in the game today. In fact, they've been one of the leading ATSs probably for the past decade. So fantastic record of consistent high performance. It is Greenhouse, of course, in the conversation whenever anybody talks about what is the best ATS to use in the modern era. Greenhouse remain at the forefront of this. So lots of cool things happening, actually. I'm speaking to Daniel Chick quite a lot over the next couple of weeks. Loads of new product drops coming from those guys. Do make sure you check them out. If you are kind of interested in upgrading your ATS and you need a core platform that's going to see you through to the next 5-10 years or so of TA, greenhouse.com may be the product for you. Check them out. Okay, excellent stuff. Adam Gordon, good to see you, mate. I suppose everyone knows you already, but it's been a while, so you might as well introduce yourself, Adam. Who are you? How would you describe yourself? What do you do?
I would describe myself as a recruitment technology entrepreneur. I build recruitment technologies which are heavily inspired by sales and marketing processes and sales and marketing technologies. I've been in recruitment since 1999. I'm a rugby player, I'm a paddle player, and I'm a dad.
Fantastic stuff. That's it, mate. That's it. Adam Gordon, do connect. He's a voice of the industry, someone you need to pay attention to. And even though you've been demoralized by the reach of your LinkedIn posts, Adam, I would encourage you to continue because your voice, I think, is very important. And I hope that LinkedIn will recognize that and recognize everyone for that, by the way, and start boosting the right content. I think you'll get there in the end. All right, good stuff. Let's do the Root newsletter review. Did you read it last week, Adam? And if so, what was interesting, man?
Yeah, I did. So let's start with Thomas Otter's article about the acquisitions that have been happening in our industry. I think there's some that are very significant, and I really think it's actually just the start of what's going to happen here. So if you have been on holiday and phone switched off for the last month or so, SAP bought Smart Recruiters. Workday bought Paradox and Flowise. Dayforce was taken off the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange in a private equity deal by Thoma Bravo, who have said they will be actively looking to add to that. And it seems like they really want to just turn that into a genuine competitor to Workday and SAP SuccessFactors. I think that the acquisitions have been really sensible and incremental as well, filling product gaps, adding AI capability. I don't know what I'm saying, what I think. I mean, this is what Thomas Otter said. I'm just telling you what he said, but I think the same. Really good article. And also, if you're not in that type of world, then he's described it as it adds a lot of liquidity for investors, which means basically they've made a bit of profit on their original investments, which is what keeps the whole thing going and keeps the innovation happening.
Yeah, Tom Sotter, for people who don't know, he's a very well respected, he's an industry legend. Everyone knows who he is, who knows. If you're in it, you know it. But you might not know simply because he's based in Germany, he writes in German and all that kind of stuff. But he wrote a very interesting article covering sort of the M&A that's been going on last 2-3 weeks. And I thought it was very sober, very managed to bridge the world between recruitment users, recruitment technology entrepreneurs, and the finance world. And I loved his explanation as to how it all made sense from the investment perspective. So really good read. Thomas is on Substack, so obviously follow that if you want. He's also on LinkedIn. Do follow him as well. One of those people that's going to make you smarter if you just pay a little bit more attention to stuff he says. So yeah, really popular article. Pleased to come across that one. Great summary of the comings and goings of what's happening in recruitment tech last couple of weeks. What else, Adam? What else is interesting for you?
Right, Kevin Wheeler's sort of fictional diary of a recruiter's gradual obsolescence from 2025 to 2035 as she reveals to us which tasks she is conceding to artificial intelligence over that 10-year period. I want to know why she's doing the same job 10 years later, apart from anything else. If you stand still, you're going backwards for the start. But it's she reflects at the end that she's wistfully trained the AI to do her job. She's trained the machines that replace her. It's quite a grim kind of chronicle of what happens. But at the same time, the only thing I really thought about was actually why I don't think he's got the timeline right. I think it's like 5 years from now that all those things are happening that he's outlined, not 10 years from now, or maybe 4 years from now. But I mean, he's well worth following.
He's well worth following, but bear in mind, Kevin, and I love Kevin, by the way. I would consider him a personal friend, and he is a legend in the industry. He's literally been pounding this beat for like 50 years or so. So he's really seen the evolution of recruitment. He is coming across a little bit of a doomer, I think. So most of his content is, hey, listen, TA, it's over. This is how it all looks. And I can understand that's a hard read because, who needs to hear stuff like this? But I think he's worth paying attention to because even if he is, even there's strong arguments against some of the things that Kevin is making, I think that perspective is relevant and it does cause you to think. The bottom line of everything recruiting brain food is that it should stimulate your thinking and then join in the conversation, folks. Do you agree with Kevin? Do you feel that, he's right or wrong in different places? Let's just contribute to that debate. I think a lot of the things he says are relevant, although I think he misses a few points which I do disagree with him on, particularly more mature businesses I think that have got a big human legacy, a legacy of human relationships. I think they'll be more resilient to AI disintermediation than Kevin's model. And I think a lot of impersonal physical work, you still have complex companies that run different types of functions, different types of departments, different types of employees from all strata of society. I think they'll be more resilient than the archetypal company that Kevin has in mind. I think if you're basically a software company, or if you're a knowledge worker only business, yes, I can imagine a great flattening going on with regards to how that organization looks in the very near future, with implications obviously for us in recruiting. Anyway, shared Kevin's article. I love his fiction. Go ahead and follow him there. Okay, give us one more, Adam, before we dive into topic.
Just really quickly, you know how you should write for an audience, right? And you've got like, doom metal and emo music and stuff like that. Well, like Kevin is really writing for Jacob Madsen. Um, it's very much the right audience for
That's true.
Kevin's
That's
perception
true.
of the future. Okay, so let's talk about we work remotely. Are they like, what are they? Are they a company that helps companies do remote working, or I don't know what they are? But anyway, I enjoyed their state of remote work article. They've basically said it's globally focused. They've said nearly 70% of US companies now offer some kind of flexibility around location, and over half of professionals prefer fully remote work, apparently. They've said that their structured hybrid models are rising. Employees are really want to prioritize being able to do their work whenever they want and work from wherever they want. But I do think we all know that, if we don't do what the CEO wants, we're gonna lose our jobs. Nearshoring to places like, this is US based, US centered article, of course, and they've talked about nearshoring to Latin America and the Philippines as something that is being driven by the talent demand. So yeah, it's worth keeping in touch. I mean, I think that, Hung, your perspective probably is that this is like dead, and it's dying, or it's already dead as a concept. But I don't know. They were reasonably upbeat about it.
Yeah, I think they're very pro remote, and they were singing sort of, as you say, right into an audience of people that work remotely. So presumably they're going to be producing positive sort of views of it. I think it's more nuanced. I think it is nuanced, but I'm kind of a bear on remote, so to say. I think remote work basically will increase your vulnerability to AI disintermediation, because the more I think about it, the more it's the personal relationships that you're able to build to get with other humans that's going to keep your value in a business. And I think that's a lot harder to do if you're remote, particularly if you start in a business remote. Different story if, let's say, you've already worked in a business and you know people well, you've built the social relationships, you built the social capital, then you go remote. People still know who you are, they still have the trust factor. I think that's a different story from coming into a company and never seeing anybody, and then trying to build that trust from zero. I think that's a lot harder to do. So yeah, I'm pretty bearish on remote now. I would say probably not the best idea for people who haven't already securitized their career. If you're in a position where you know what, you could walk away, brilliant. Of course, you never go back to the office, no worries. However, if you think, you know what, you still got to crack on for another 10, 15 years or whatever, I wouldn't say no to in an on-premise job. I think it might make sense to just dive back in and make sure you're embedded there. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong.
Would you do
Sorry,
one?
mate.
Would you ever work in an office?
No, but I would say I've securitized my career. I mean, not to say I'm wealthy. That's far from the case. But I'm very cheap. So I've like low
Fully
cost.
utilized though.
Yeah, low cost. And also, Brainfood is a massive network, man. I mean, it really helps in the sense that that's going to be my lifeline. If there's one thing that's going to support that, it's going to be, the distribution network I've got, the community I'm part of, etc. That probably sees me all right. So I don't think that makes me a good example to follow, though. Because I think I've just accidentally got to this point. I wouldn't recommend it as a designed sort of, it was never a designed journey. And it probably couldn't be replicated if I wanted to anymore. So yeah, if I was just doing a job as a recruiter, I'd be thinking, you know what, I'd like to get in. But anyway, could be wrong. Let me know in the comments, folks. All right, are you a bear or bull on remote? We haven't even talked about remote in 2025. Maybe that's a Brainfood Live we should discuss in future as well. Anyway, we're going to crack on and talk about this topic. How much can your talent acquisition team do capacity planning in the era of AI? We've been told we're going to be doing more with less for the last 3 years. And, guess what? Actually, we've responded positively, in my view. Lots of companies have done more with less. But how does that then affect how we think about how many recruiters we need in our teams? Have the numbers changed? Has the rec load gone up per recruiter? If so, how much? And how do we calculate that? Any thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. Adam, I'll come to you actually. What are your thoughts on this? I know you've had some touch points. Obviously, you're doing a recruitment enablement product yourself. I know you're close with people in Talent Tech Labs as well. So, what's your take on capacity planning for TA in the AI-enabled future? How do we work out the numbers going forward?
The person responsible for talent acquisition needs to be the same person who's responsible for how does the organization get its tasks completed, whether it's a technology solution or it's an outsourcing solution or whatever it is. Somebody needs to own all of that. And it may be the TA leader is promoted into that and takes over that, or it might be an AI person, or it might be some sort of like a contracts person or something like that who goes in there and just establishes what do we need to achieve as a company? What's the best way to get it done? Is it a human solution? Is it a non-human solution? And I think that bridging that will really happen. We know that Moderna have done that. We know that a couple of other companies are looking at it. That's my input. It's pretty high level though.
No, high level, and I think it's also one of those that is probably talking about, and I endorse that as well, that we have to be a business enablement function. It's not talent acquisition. That was great when we were all growing companies, and that was the route forward to deliver the business objective. But that's no longer the case. There's like people, we still need people, but the people are there for a purpose, which is to deliver to an outcome. And if the outcome can be achieved by, supercharging your existing resources, or even deploying some robots to do that, then we're probably going to go ahead and do this. So anyway, transformation of job coming. HR and TA merger is another topic we're going to do in October. But in the meantime, let's talk about capacity planning for the TA that we do have. Let's bring on some of our guests here to talk about this and see where we're at. We've got a really wonderful lineup today. So I'm going to bring everyone on. You should all be getting an invitation to come on main stage. Accept that. Make sure that the mic and the webcam is on. Where's Karen? There she is. There's Brad as well. Brad, how are you doing? Good to see you, sir.
I'm doing great. It's early my time. It's 6 a.m. Pacific here, West Coast. So I'm outside.
Ridiculously early, and you know what, we have double reasons to be thankful for Brad, because I understand there's a special day for you. Was it yesterday, Brad, or was it today? So
it was yesterday. I don't know how you knew that, but that's awesome. Yeah, yesterday was my birthday, so I'm officially old.
Not only happy birthday, Brad, but he's turning up probably hungover from his birthday celebrations at 6 a.m. in the morning. Ridiculous, and on a holiday as well, and in the US having a Labor Day. So well done to Brad. Brad, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do? We'll go do a quick round robin whilst everyone else comes on screen.
Sure. So I'm the head of talent acquisition for Article. We're a North American-based online direct-to-consumer furniture brand. And previous to this, I also am co-founder of Kiora, which is a SMS platform for recruiters. So that part runs on its own. But I'm an advisor now for that, where my day job is running talent acquisition for Article.
Fantastic stuff. And we've got Amandeep here as well. Amandeep, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Perfect. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So good. Okay, perfect. Cool. Well, thanks for having me. I look after recruiting, director of recruiting, whatever you want to call it, talent acquisition at a company called Automatic, with a company behind big brands like WordPress.com, WooCommerce, Tumblr, more recently stuff like Beeper and Clay. So we're big in the internet space, effectively. And I've been here now just over 4 years. But my background is in recruiting, worked in a bunch of different tech companies.
Amazing. And big is saying the least of it. Isn't Automatic behind like 50% of the internet or something? It literally is like dominant as a software provider. It powers half the internet. It's a really amazing company. Great to have you here, Amandeep. We have Karen as well. Karen, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, thank you, Home. Thanks for having me. Audio okay?
Yes, audio is great.
Good stuff. So I'm Karen Hutchison, and as of 4 days ago, I'm the VP of talent globally for a company called Ep326. So software company, IT services, and interestingly, to Adam's point, I've made a point of taking the acquisition off my talent title as I joined because of that partnership with the business going forward. So excited for today's conversation.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Karen. Hot off the press, folks. We still had Karen mislabeled on the marketing graphic here. But great actually to see people get jobs. I've seen a few of those things happen over the last couple of days. And great to see some liquidity happening at the leadership tier at TA. So great to see you here, Karen. And we have Mary Kay Baldino, of course, good friend of Brainfood. Great to see you, Mary Kay. For the people who don't know you, can you introduce yourself, who it is you do?
Sure. Hi, Mary Kay Baldino. I lead global talent acquisition at Morningstar, not the breakfast sausage company, the investment company.
Great stuff, Mary Kay. Okay, let's get on with the conversation here. We're all here to kind of think about talent acquisition capacity planning. What does that look like going forward? Firstly, let's talk at the political level. Has it been the case that you've basically had pressure internally to try and just get all the numbers up? Because you know what AI is doing all this, guys. You need to be more productive. Therefore, all the numbers ratchet up 30%. Like your conversations with, the CFO, CEO, stuff like that, have they come to you to talk about, okay, guys, we need you to do more? And if so, how have you handled that? Anybody want to volunteer any stories on that note?
I can. I'm actually the one pushing on the investment in recruiting technology that will better integrate AI into our workflows. I've been here 7 months, and I recently presented a 3-year strategy and roadmap to our CEO, and it a lot of what I'm interested in doing with AI is finding ways to incorporate it so that we are freeing up recruiters and hiring managers and to be able to focus more on the value add parts of the process, to have better assessment of talent at every stage in the process, and to be able to have people doing the real value add tests and eliminate things that really aren't value add or can be done better, faster, cheaper with AI tools. So I think I've been the one pushing it right now.
Really interesting, Mary Kay. Let's lean on this a little bit. Did you come to it with a view, because you've done a few heads of TA jobs and so on, and probably you've got a few ballpark figures with regards to how much capacity and what the numbers kind of should feel like. Did you roll into this new job thinking, you know what, we can do more actually, and in fact we need to set those a new bar? And did you come up with those numbers to bring to the business?
So for Morningstar, and I think this is different in every company, I don't think there is a single model to this, but it was first understanding what's the model of talent acquisition that we need at Morningstar. Where do we have like really high volume recruitment funnels, and where do we need to have smaller, more tailored, and there's a lot of hands-on sourcing, a lot of value add work that needs to happen. And then going from there to, okay, so what are the workflows and the tools, including AI, that best support that? So there's unfortunately no easy answer to this. I do think that for me, it's always about, well, do we have the people resources with the right skills, doing the right things, not, just how do we, I don't want to just throw manpower at things that technology can do better. So some of this is also about reskilling your recruiting workforce. If you don't have those tools in place now, you're absolutely going to need to reskill. And we're seeing this across the board at Morningstar. We're getting ready to launch an AI academy across our whole company so that all of our employees are reskilling to better include AI in everything that they're doing. Yeah,
really, really interesting. I love the fact that the business model is important because that obviously determines what capacity might be in any case. Coming to you, let's go to you, Brad, on this. Furniture company, there's going to be a mix of all kinds of different things going on there. Obviously, big e-commerce side, obviously big sort of logistics side as well. How does the model work in your business, and what's been the conversation internally about, you know, TA capacity within your company?
Yeah, so we went through a pretty large riff a few years ago. So post-pandemic, our world and our sales changed radically. And so my team shrunk. So we went from a team of 22 down to a team of 6. And so we had highly specialized TA members focused on certain areas. And so we had to totally reassemble how the team worked, going to like a mixed model where everyone had to do everything. We called it total football as a nod to a soccer reference where every player can play every position. But the biggest thing we put in place was we put an agile t-shirt sizing capacity plan in place. And so what we realized was, you know, we had a ticketing system in, and so we had limits on per recruiter each amount of roles they could work on. However, the challenge was is these roles were radically different. If you're working some warehouse roles versus, let's say, a VP of e-commerce, your capacity levels were totally different. And so I had people literally working on everything from drivers to, like I said, senior executive roles. And so everyone had to do everything. So this t-shirt sizing model works is the TA members, there's a number associated with that. So I looked at this from capacity as, you know, average person can do about 10 recs per person. A size medium t-shirt is a 1. And then from there, like then so it's XL, you know, from XL to extra small, every size has a certain number associated to it. And so this wasn't based upon the seniority of the role. So it wasn't just like an executive role is going to be always an XL, or because you might have, let's say, internal candidates or something else. This, and so it's actually not that hard. It's actually based on the TA team leading that decision. So the capacity is led by the team. So each team member can base that upon, let's say, how realistic the hiring manager is, how new that hiring manager is from a hiring manager maturity model standpoint, what the comp is. So again, like how realistic this is, and also based on their ability to do this. So if you have someone working on a totally different function they've never worked on, it's gonna be harder for them. So the team sets the parameter, the team decides their own capacity, and then we run a backlog. And this has like been the most important thing we did. Once we put this in place, and it wasn't easy to do, there was a lot of pushback, is if we don't have enough capacity, we just say no. We run a backlog. And I talked to so many TA leaders who just say, what do you mean? You just don't open every role? Nope. They just sit there and they wait. And that's fine. And then from there, and then we move forward. What's interesting is doing this is all the metrics matter dropped or improved. And so time to hire radically improved. You know, actually the number of roles hired and per recruiter improved. Hiring manager scores, we have a CSAT score for hiring managers, candidate CSAT, all these things improved by just saying no, and then empowering the TA team to actually own capacity themselves. Because people ask, oh, how many recs can you do? It depends. There's so many factors. And so it's really hard, I think, to model this out. And what we've noticed going forward is headcount is more sparse. We're becoming leaner and leaner. Now, things have changed. We're actually on track to have the most profitable year ever, which is fantastic. But we're still super lean for headcount. And in doing so, we're getting more Frankenstein roles. The bar for roles is way higher. We're getting inundated full of AI, enabled candidates, so to speak. And so my team's doing, the headcounts are harder. Each hire is harder, but the team controls what their capacity is individually, and then that controls the team capacity.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Great that the TA is sort of controlling this. I hope that's the default, by the way, in the industry. I'm not sure whether that is. Let me know, folks. I mean, do you feel that you have the ability to set the agenda and set the numbers, or do you feel that actually it's imposed upon you by people from outside of TA and say, look, we actually need you to do this with this resource? Let me know how it feels in your company. But Brad, really great that you're able to set that up. But let's think about how to get there. Karen, joining a new company, I guess that's probably one of the things you've got to do, right? You've got to set up, talk to the business, talk to the team, figure out exactly, what is realistic, what's doable, what's optimal in terms of performance. Where did you get started with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with Mary Kay's point around no business is the same. Even businesses in the same kind of industries can have very different models, right? So being now in a services organization, but where that's where the majority of my experience has come from, is being in either IT or facilities services. You have a client, right? You're not building a product. You have a client at the end of at the end of that, waiting for somebody to join them with their expertise. And so everything is linked to that from a commercial standpoint as well, to the business growth. And each business will have a different way of working, and even sub business units within that business may also have a different element, right? If you're providing straight on, extra hands on a keyboard, or if you're providing high-end touch consulting services, it's going to look very different. And so will the recruitment team behind that, as will probably the process that you end up following. So for me, how I get started is always with getting to know people, both the team and the business. So it's been a baptism of fire the last 4 days at Ep326 with 30 odd introduction meetings. But from a TA perspective, I like to take a design thinking approach to it, right? So what does your operating model look like if you have different personas within the ecosystem of talent? And how do those personas interact with each other and hand off to each other? And actually your AI component, and I like to see it as an assistant, an enabler, not a replacer, is another persona in that design thinking approach of the journey of talent. So understanding what the business needs, first of all, and what the strategic direction of the business is, will enable you to really understand where you need to go as a TA leader. Along with that, you have different types of hiring in the organization that may well be serviced very well from a self-service perspective through to a very high-end, high-touch exec hiring, for example. And so having a flexible operating model that you can build out with the right capacity at the right time for the right service you need to provide the business and sometimes your end clients. It takes time to build that, but an experienced TA leader will be able to go in and quite quickly establish what's needed, right? And I think in addition to that, and probably a little bit to one of Adam's points earlier, the role of a recruiter is changing. And I think there's a great influx of opportunity here where we can move to a much more strategic advisory position, as opposed to a reactive one. And a lot of companies are doing that already. A lot of leaders are doing that with their team already. But being fluent around the data and the insights is what will be the game changer. And having an AI assistant and having that enablement in the team will be the differentiator, both in leaders and TA functions in general. Your first question, Hung, was around, are we driving it or did the business come and ask us? So in my previous organization, which was Mighty, I very much took it to the exec to say, this is what we need to be doing. This is where we need to go. This is what we need to do. But I'm really happy that at Ep326, we were AI and data enabled. We're AI first company, actually. And PE backed. So really excited that there's going to be lots of interesting conversations and moves in that direction. But just a couple of my thoughts there.
No, thanks for sharing, Karen. And really, really interesting to talk about sort of a couple of points you mentioned, particularly about whether you've got a centralized or decentralized TA. I mean, I guess this entire topic needs to be broken down into subcategories, really, to make better sense of it. But perhaps Amandeep can help us with this, because you've had a consistent run, haven't you, Amandeep? You've been there 4 years. So it's probably been the most sort of dramatically changing 4 years in TA history, really, ups and downs everywhere, every year complete black swan event changes things altogether. How has AI impacted your thinking with regards to capacity planning for your team? We've seen some evidence that it does have strong impact in certain areas of TA. What does that mean for the numbers at Automatic, Amandeep?
It's quite interesting because I think the last 4 years has almost set us up perfectly for AI. When I first joined Automatic, we were in bumper growth mode. You know, we went from, I think, 1,400 up to about 2,300 people in 18 months. So it was bumper growth, and it was a very fragmented TA team. So there's a lot of work that went into kind of consolidating it, building out a TA function. I think we went up to about 25, 26-ish in TA. And then the cuts hit. You know, it was like, brakes on, we're going to slow down hiring, we're not going to hire anymore. You know, we need to distribute these people into other areas of the business. We didn't do any layoffs at that time. And the TA function reduced massively, but hiring didn't reduce as much as everybody was saying. So, you know, we basically brought our whole recruiting function down to something that could hire maybe 50 to 100 people a year. But in reality, the business demand was actually 150 to 200 a year. And so, you know, for the next couple of years, we were used to doing more with less before everybody else was talking about it. And my mentality actually shifted to talent advisory probably 3 years ago. Like, I was telling everybody in the business, like all of the recruiters, we're not going to be successful in the future if you're just a transactional recruiter. You have to become a talent advisor to the business, and this is what it means. And so we started setting that up for our recruiters about 3 years ago. And more recently with AI, I've actually kind of pivoted it to talent advisory 2.0. And, you know, so this means really leaning into the business. That's what it really means for me. And so with the age of AI, I see it as a great enabler. Like, for me, it's like, okay, before we were stretched. We were really having to kind of rock the boat. We were having to really kind of work hard. We were having to say no, to Brad's point, to some roles that had mixed opinions and mixed results across the business for various reasons, which I can touch on. But with AI, it's enabled us to get a lot more productive. It's enabled us to get ahead of the curve. It's enabled us to get better at predictive, to be able to do predictive modeling and stuff like this around our roles. To be able to go and do talent mapping, talent insights in a more meaningful way, and with better, and so we can actually go to our business stakeholders with more information. And so all of a sudden, it's shifting, and the roles of, we've really lent into this talent advisory 2.0, where a role might take longer to hire. We don't really care about time to hire it that much at Automatic. When everybody's talking about 30 days, we're actually quite comfortable at 70 days. We don't care. We don't want it to be 30 days because it's a better signal for us. And so there's a whole bunch of other things. We don't follow the industry trend in a lot of different ways, but we're also being very careful with AI. So whilst we're leaning into it from a business standpoint, and we're building applied AI teams and all sorts of other things, utilizing AI tech, we want it to be an assistant to the human, very much like I think Mary Kay was saying before. We do not want it to be replacing humans at this stage. So we're using some tech, we're testing some tech out, but there's a lot of legislation out there which means we cannot have it replacing decision making. So AI is assisting human decision making, not replacing it, and that's a really key distinction for us right now. We're testing a tool for sourcing and outbound stuff, but we actually stopped at a point of the outbound where it would identify profiles but not do the outbound. It's capable of doing it, but there's so many flags before it gets to that point that I was like, we can't do that. We can't do that other piece just yet. And so lots of tech out there, lots of AI, but I'm also I think we're at least a year away from it being truly transformative for talent. That's my kind of thought processes.
Okay, thanks everyone for making sort of the observations on the first pass of this. Let's move it on to think about how we come up with the numbers, I guess. And we all know all companies are different. We all know there's different models and all the rest of it. But if we're starting at point A, and previously this was what we thought was a decent number, Now we have a new world where not only is the external pressure to do more with less, there's also internal sort of ambition to do more with less. And it seems like we've got the capability of doing it. How do we then go ahead and actually create, the capacity plan? Like, how do we understand how much we can absorb in this? I suppose a lot of it's got to come down to, looking at the quality of our team members. Like, are they able to become AI enabled? And if so, how competent or how skilled might they end up being? Perhaps that's a factor. I forget who it was that mentioned, the maturity of the hiring managers. That's also a factor as well. Like, how quick can they use some of the tools that's out there? Which, by the way, a lot of the tools seem to be optimized for hiring managers also. So, we're looking at maybe a changed relationship between how talent acquisition and hiring managers operate. No longer a case of client server as it was back in the past. Maybe it's more collaborative. If AI can generate a long list for the hiring managers to yes, no on, then that changes the relationship between sort of how recruiters and hiring managers might operate. What are your thoughts on how we kind of develop a plan for this? If you could coach someone to think about designing a capacity plan for TA for this AI-enabled future, how do we go about doing that?
I think it's got to be stemmed on the data, right? You've got to look at historical data first. You have to really understand not just the capacity, but the capability of the team that's in place. And if you've got a team full of A players, then you would model that slightly differently to if you have some developing team members in place as well, right? You would kind of ease that up a little bit, let's say. But you have to look at the historical data. How has the team performed? What are the numbers that has been hired over the last 6-12 months? And has the business changed? Have the roles changed? Has the market changed in which you're hiring? If you're in a global role, particularly, there's lots of geopolitical elements, let's say, going on at the moment, and not to get into the politics of it, but a company may wish to switch up their hiring strategy, their location strategy, based on the current environment, and therefore your previous capacity in one location where there was an abundance of talent easily accessible is going to completely change and look totally different going forward. So I think you have to, it's all based on the data, but you have to allow both internal and external factors into play, and then look at it with a grown-up view, right? A very analytical but nuanced view of what does it actually mean, right? You've got all the data, but so what? What does it mean? How does it impact what we're going to do next with the team?
I love that you brought the socioeconomic environment, and it is relevant. It kind of speaks to the sort of the instability of the what I call the global macro. So what's happening outside of your company. No one's in control of that, but it does influence things, particularly in recruiting, right? Does it make sense, for instance, if you're importing a bunch of equipment from one country to the next, and you're expecting the numbers to look like this because that was the rate, suddenly there's a massive tariff applied to it on the back of a rage tweet, in midnight, changes the game. Suddenly you might need to completely rethink how you might staff that plays up. So we need to, like, I guess, a responsive and really dynamic capacity planning, don't we? We can't just say, oh, here's the plan. Yeah. And then, that's the plan. We're going to stick to it no matter what, because things are going to change so rapidly. We've got to build in that dynamism. What is the method to do that? Like, do we throw plans out? Is it actually even worth doing a plan? Or is it just worth just training ourselves to be super agile and just constantly, it's like being that animal in the jungle kind of thing, just constantly alert for danger. And that's the best we can hope for.
I think agile does matter. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, no, please go ahead.
I think agile does matter, actually. I think having recruiters who are specialized is wonderful if that's the model that your organization needs. But the reality for most organizations is they need recruiters who are agile. And I do think that great recruiters can recruit for anything. given the right sort of business inputs. I'm relatively new here, so one of the things I did early on was I come at everything through kind of a Lean Six Sigma lens. So I did process workshops where we looked at every single step in the process across each region, and with the help and input of all of the recruiting teams, and we really broke it down and said, where are we wasting time, motion, energy, and how do we strip all that waste out so that time can be reinvested and refocused in things that are value add. And that was really then the impetus for shifting to more of, okay, so how is the work changing and what does that mean in terms of reskilling? And so moving into 2026, like, what does the recruiter academy approach look like? How are we working continuously to help people learn how to incorporate AI into things? And when I say people, recruiting is a team sport, so I'm including interviewers and hiring managers there too. How do we get smarter about how we are also combating the ways that candidates are using AI? We're being flooded by bot-driven resumes. I know a lot of other people are. Everybody on this call probably is dealing with that. So how are we using AI and tools to help us manage in that environment as well? Sorry, Brad, you go.
No, it's awesome. It's the lean part of it is fantastic. When I was retooling our team, I looked at the same thing. I was looking at I was rereading Lean Enterprise, looking at the idea of like, how is this actually a recruitment factory? How do we think of this way for our throughput? How do we actually understand again all the bottlenecks in the process? I think one of the things for planning is planning fallacy, and I think also this is where so often people say, here's our annual plan, here's our total, and it's never accurate. And so like, the further out you look, the less accurate that is. And so like, I don't really put a ton of weight on any of those big numbers because I think things change so quickly. I think our markets are so dynamic. And so Hung Lee, like you talked about, it's like dynamicism required. I say like, you're constantly sailing these oceans, and storms come up out of nowhere, headwinds come out of nowhere, tailwinds come out of nowhere, and you're just constantly adjusting. And so your capacity is so like the way we do it is literally like I can see how much my open capacity is. I can model out what we predicted looks like, but I don't give any, like far numbers out there because it's just, I don't think they're realistic anymore. And I think on the AI side, I think the tooling's great and there's some neat things happening. The big thing is AI is reducing the total headcount companies need. And so each new actual human is actually more and more valuable. And so I hope my team is doing less hiring because I think each hire is going to be actually a more of a key hire when it comes to knowledge worker type roles. When it comes to anything not kind of SG&A related, when on the front line, that's different. Those things are not as easy to replace. But so I think I look at this as the capacity change is really hire to predict. But each hire is going to become more and more important as hiring becomes leaner. Like as people lose somebody and say, actually, I don't need to hire that person. And what I really care about is I want my TA team, rather than being the one to say, here's a human resource, I think the future will be is, actually, I think we can replace that. Here's an agentic solution. And so I want my team being the one providing that, understanding how we can actually refactor teams versus just being there being like, I can only provide human solutions. I want a library of pre-built, like whether it's in-house agentic solutions, tools we buy off the shelf, and we're the ones helping them say, before we hiring should be the last thing we do. And here's all of our other options. And if we can't refactor a team and can't provide tooling, then let's actually go and look at the human side of it.
It's a really interesting vision, Brad, and I'm 100% aligned with that. I'm interested to know from anybody that has put into place a plan to do just this. Like, have you got, for instance, a training academy for your AI agents? Have you got them ready to deploy when an organization needs that additional capacity? How do we even do that? Is that how we do it? I've got the feeling that we need to have those solutions ready sort of quickly to deploy in response to business demand. rather than say, oh, we're going to train an AI for that, because the person might say, I need this person yesterday. As usual, the demand will come with a sense of immediacy. So that's something we've got to think about as an entire professional segment. Amandeep, you were nodding away at some of the stuff Brad was saying there. So why don't you share your thoughts on this concept of, expanding the TA scope? The capacity plan needs to be more inclusive, meaning more inclusive of non-human workforce.
Yeah, I mean, we're right in the middle of this right now at Automatic. We've got we're building, as mentioned before, very briefly, but we're building applied AI teams, right? So we're right in the middle of this, and we're, probably one of the, I don't know, the oldest distributed functions in tech. So, we're a fully distributed company. We don't have an office environment, but interestingly, to one of the earlier points Adam had, we're now experimenting within an office team in New York. So, we're kind of building this small core function for applied AI engineers in New York. And so there's a whole load of interesting stuff kind of happening of what this means. And this is a team that's designed to extrapolate, the efficiencies of AI across the rest of our engineering teams. And that's going to impact our engineering hiring going forwards. Like, there's a bunch of stuff which is going to happen with that. So headcount planning, I'm just going to touch on a couple of different topics that are floating around my brain, but TA capacity goes back to business planning, and business planning right now is out of the window because AI is disrupting so many different parts of it. So agility is important. We went from specialized recruiters to generalist recruiters. Our chief people officer thinks we should go back to specialized recruiters. I don't know. I'm personally like, we currently have a model where we have a core group of very, very good recruiters internally at Automatic. A small group, very, very strong. And we're supplemented using an RPO, which we can scale up and down at will. So if the business all of a sudden goes, hey, in the next 6 months, we need to hire this many people, I'm like, cool. How many people? Like, what can we currently do with our team? Do we need more? Do we need more people through this RPO? Do we not? Et cetera, et cetera. And we always make sure we've got 1 or 2 people from this RPO on board at any one time, so that the knowledge gap is never reducing. Not cheap, but it's a way for us to enable an added layer of agility and dynamicism in the way that we offer our services back to the business effectively. So that's kind of a more tactical solution to this whole thing. We are using AI solutions to empower what we're doing. I mean, we use MetaView for like note taking and stuff like that. Fine. That started impacting intake calls. It started impacting JDs. Very cool. Is it impacting our headcount in any significant way? No. I would say, maybe, but not like meaningfully. We've been testing out some inbound AI tool for inbound. Nothing's really hit the mark yet, is what I would say. They're okay, but not great. And I'm building one myself right now, like literally coding it in using Claude Code to see if it'll do half the job of something out there, which is costing tens and tens and tens of thousands of pounds. And if we can kind of build it for free, then let's see. I don't know. It's an interesting world, but there's a lot of different stuff out there. And is AI meaningfully going to, like, are AI agents going to replace recruiters? Are they meaningfully going to be able to replace headcount? Not right now. They're not. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Folks, I'm just looking at the time and we're flying through this conversation. As usual, we clearly need more time to discuss this, and maybe we need to do a round 2 on capacity planning. We're going to be talking about KPIs in about a month, so it's kind of like a natural follow-up for this. But in the interim, we've got to make sure that Brainfood Live is not a conversation-stopping show. We have to make sure that people are able to continue having this dialogue, even if we have to come off air, which we will do in about 10 minutes. So the way to do this is to make sure you're connected with everyone else who is on this show. They got all sort of people who are interested in this topic. Why not just have a connection with people afterwards and take it off air, continue the chat. Way to do this, folks: grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream, and then connect with everyone else who's done the same. Make sure you walk away with at least a dozen or so new friends that care about this topic. It'll help everyone get smarter. The more connections that we have and the more sort of conversations we have on topic. Okay. By the way, do the same if you're watching this on LinkedIn. Just grab your LinkedIn URL, stick it in the comment thread, and connect with everyone who's done the same. They should really all just automatically accept it. Okay, let's move on to some advice to people that are thinking about this. Capacity planning for 2026, for instance, is probably a real thing for the people are doing right now. How do you kind of create a formula or framework, or what is the best formula and framework to create that plan? Any sort of quick bits of advice that you could drop in to someone who's kind of struggling with this topic right now? What would you suggest? Mary Kay, if we go to you first.
I mean, I think you have to start by really understanding what it is that your organization's trying to accomplish and how. How really matters. So if you know that, if you understand the environment you're operating in really well, what the business objectives are, and you're aligned with the strategy, then it gets a lot easier to start picking out the places to start and the places to start to insert AI at the appropriate level of adoption.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. How about sort of your thoughts, Karen? I mean, I guess starting just recently, but you've got to probably have a plan in place at some point. So how are you gonna what's your approach to doing that?
Have two plans. So we've got there'll be a tactical plan for in year. Right, in year plan for what's going on right now until the end of our fiscal year, which is 31st of December, and there will be a plan for what happens next. And as Mary Kay said, it's coming from we happen to be PE backed, so there'll be that element to take into account. But every corporate structure will be slightly different. Understand where your business is going. Literally from a location perspective, because that will play. I think that location strategy will come in quite heavily over the next few years, with the lay of the land as it is right now. I think it's going to have more of an impact than we think. Your strategic workforce planning, if you have one, be agile with it and get it updated. If you don't have one, get one. And then have your tactical and your strategic plan.
Yeah, that's a good point. You got to have maybe a parallel process, long distance game plan, but also something that you need to just get the rhythm of what this world looks like, which is just rapid fire and ability to cope with the unexpected. It's a volatile situation out there. Brad, share your bit of advice. What would you say if you could coach yourself just starting this, or if you was a new person coming in to a job for the first time as head of TA? How would you coach them on how to build a capacity plan for this world that we're in?
I mean, for the big thing is just prepare to be wrong. I think honestly, just realize whatever your first attempt is, it's probably not going to be right, and you're going to have to learn and adjust along the way. I think the modeling. I mean, you can look at the data, you can look at your team numbers and model out, but I think the way things are changing, just expect that it's not going to land, and be prepared to adjust constantly.
Yeah, don't be wedded to a plan. I think the old school way of just doing a waterfall method where collect all the requirements, furnish a plan, roll it out, and then suddenly you've created this edifice, this kind of a millstone around your neck to say we got to try and hit this, or this is the only thing that's it's become sacrosanct. Not the way. It's got to be a living document, right? It's got to be hey, listen, this is what we're going to shoot for, but we've got to be able to inject variables into this because the world is so volatile that we can't sort of comfortably predict that this document stays relevant. Okay, Amandeep, let's leave it with you. Sorry, Adam, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to give my own tip, but sorry, let the guest go first, Amandeep.
Okay, Amandeep, let's go, and then we'll go to Adam.
Oh, okay. I'll try and be very quick with this. I agree. Like, go with your strategic workforce plan if you've got one. We do not do it automatic. Our founder and CEO just is like, nope, he doesn't believe in it, wants to be more agile. So whenever I approach him or anybody else about planning, it's just that there is no planning. So what I do is I create my own plan based on our board notes. So when we have board meetings, board notes, like, and then I talk to other leaders, basically our business unit leaders, and I form out my own version of a strategic workforce plan. So I do the work for them, and then put that against what I believe we can do from a TA perspective. But again, I agree with a lot of the advice here. Be prepared to be wrong and be prepared to pivot. And that's why we have this hybrid model with an RPO in place, where we can bring people on board if we need to. We can let people go if we need to very quickly. In some cases, we've brought back people we've let go from the RPO. So, they've ramped up extremely quickly, like within a week, and, are able to kind of pick things up straight away. So, yeah, I would say just all of those things, and get creative. So if you don't have strategic workforce planning, or it doesn't work, get creative around it.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Amandeep. Adam's had to bounce, which is fine. But yeah, I love the concept of having to deal with a CEO that doesn't want to do the planning, and I kind of get that as well. I've got some sort of sympathy with the view, because it is maybe not the toughest thing to do, the easiest thing to do right now. But as a TA function, you may need to have some sort of mechanism for your own needs and operate on your own basis. Okay, that's it. We have to leave it. Everyone's leaving and dropping off, as they should. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Mary Kay Baldino, Amandeep Shergill, Bradley Clark, Karen Hutchinson, Adam Gordon. Thank you, everyone else, for joining. Wonderful to see you all. I hope you've enjoyed the show and learned a few things. I certainly have. We'll be back next week. We'll be back next week with a double header. In fact, we've got 2 shows for you next week. One on, I think the 3rd? Yeah, we've got one on the 3rd of September. This is going to be a really interesting topic. We're going to be talking about SEO for LLM era. So in other words, if people are starting to think about, we're discovering information really through the chat interface rather than from search engines, would it not make sense for us to get into the training data in some way? What does all that mean for people in EB and talent attraction and so on? We've got Nathan Perrott, who's going to come in and show us a huge amount of data as to what they're thinking about how to do things. So SEO for LLM, I think that's a really important one for recruitment marketers to attend. You can sign up for that straight away. And we're going to be back on Friday as usual as well. The Friday show is going to be about the realities of AI, how AI is being used by TA. We're back with Sven E. Elbert, the guy who I thought gave the best talk at RecFest a month or so ago. He's going to come on and basically talk us through his research with 1,000 or so heads of TA on getting the real story about how artificial intelligence is being used today in the TA world. 2 must-attend shows, folks. Make sure you follow the channel if you're interested in this type of chat. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, follow my page on LinkedIn. That's my personal page. Sort of a Hung Lead personal page. I broadcast from there every Friday, and whenever I go live anywhere, it's always a LinkedIn live from that page. So if you follow that page, you'll see it. Okay, that's about it. I hope you're well. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.